Attention! A real story verified by a team specializing in the paranormal, with testimonies, images, and received documents. Proceeding may shock or disturb you and affect your emotional and mental state. Watch at your own risk.
My name is Carlos, and for 3 years I worked as a night watchman at Hacienda Nápoles in Colombia. For those who don't know, this place was once Pablo Escobar's empire, the most feared man in Latin America. Today it's a theme park, full of tourists during the day, but at night it's a different story. I took the job because I needed the money. My daughter was sick and the public hospitals couldn't handle it. The salary was good, better than any other security job in the region. But there was one detail that should have warned me. No one stayed more than 6 months in that position. The property has over 3,000 hectares, abandoned mansions, landing strips covered with weeds, artificial lakes where Escobar kept hippos that still roam free around there. During the day, families take photos and children run through the gardens. But when the sun sets and the gates close, the silence that takes over that place is not natural. On my first night, my supervisor, a man with sunken eyes named Rodrigo, handed me the keys and a powerful flashlight. He looked at me with an expression I couldn't decipher at the time, something between pity and fear. "Stay in the lit areas," was all he said before leaving me alone in that vast territory of shadows. I didn't believe in ghosts. I didn't believe in wandering souls or vengeful spirits, but what happened during those 3 years at Hacienda Nápoles challenged everything I thought I knew about reality. And what I'm going to tell you now is not fiction. It's not an urban legend. It's what I saw, what I felt, what happened to me in that cursed place. Because Pablo Escobar may have been dead for decades, but something of him never left Hacienda Nápoles. The first few weeks were calm, almost boring. My routine was simple. Arrive at 10 at night, do rounds every 2 hours, check if all the gates were locked, and if no visitor had been trapped after closing. The rest of the time I spent in the main guardhouse, a small cabin with security monitors, showing cameras scattered throughout the property. The hacienda at night had a strange beauty. The security lights created islands of clarity amid total darkness. I could hear the hippos moving in the lakes, their grunts echoing across the plain. Sometimes some wild animal would cross the path, and I would just watch, smoking my cigarette and drinking coffee. Rodrigo gave me all the necessary instructions. There were areas I didn't need to check during the night, mainly the older buildings, the ones that belonged to Escobar's times. "The park doesn't use those buildings anymore," he explained. "Leave them alone." I thought it was strange, but I didn't question it. Less work for me. I met the other employees who worked during the day. Gardeners, tour guides, maintenance staff. Everyone was friendly, but I noticed something peculiar. No one liked to talk about the real history of the place. When tourists asked about Escobar, the answers were always vague, procedural, as if there was a silent agreement not to awaken certain memories. One of the cleaning ladies, Donna Mercedes, a gray-haired lady who had worked there for over 15 years, offered me coffee one afternoon when I arrived earlier. While we talked, she mentioned something that at the time seemed like just superstition from an elderly person. "You work at night, don't you? Be careful. Some souls don't rest, especially those who did a lot of evil in life." I smiled politely and thanked her for the coffee. Superstition, I thought, just stories to scare newcomers. But I should have paid more attention to the tone of her voice, the seriousness in her eyes, because Donna Mercedes knew something I was about to discover. The first strange thing happened in my 5th week of work. It was a Friday night, moonless, and the darkness seemed denser than normal. I was doing my 2 o'clock round, walking through the area of the old gardens, when I noticed something different. The door to the old main house, the one Escobar used to receive visitors, was ajar. I was absolutely certain it was locked. I had personally checked it at the beginning of the shift, as I did every night. That door had a heavy, rusty lock that creaked loudly when turned. I approached slowly, the flashlight illuminating the entrance. The wind wasn't strong enough to open a door of that weight. I pushed it completely open and entered, sweeping the interior with the light. Furniture covered by white sheets, cracked marble floor, walls with moisture stains. Everything seemed untouched, covered by years of abandonment. I locked the door again, this time testing 3 times to be sure. The cold metal of the key turned with difficulty in the old lock. I returned to the guardhouse, but something bothered me. It wasn't possible that I had forgotten to lock that door. I was meticulous. I always was. 2 nights later, it happened again. Same door, ajar. This time, I felt a strange cold coming from inside the house, even though it was a hot and humid night. The air coming from there was freezing, as if there was an air conditioner on. But the house hadn't had electricity for years. I started writing everything down, every anomaly, every detail out of place. The following week, I found a chair in the middle of the old library corridor, far from where it should be. No one but me had access to that area during the night. The security cameras in that region had been broken for months, according to Rodrigo. That's when I started hearing the footsteps. Always distant, always when I was alone in the more remote areas. Firm footsteps, heavy boots, echoing in the empty corridors. When I turned to look, the sound stopped immediately. Total silence, as if whoever was there knew exactly when I was paying attention. The following weeks were a slow descent into something I couldn't name. Fear started as discomfort, a feeling that I wasn't really alone on those night rounds. Then, it transformed into something deeper, more visceral. The footsteps became more frequent. I heard them mainly near the old landing strip, where planes loaded with cocaine used to land decades ago. The cracked concrete seemed to absorb any sound during the day, but at night it echoed every movement. And I swore I heard someone walking around there, always about 50 meters away, always out of reach of my flashlight. One night, while checking the gates of the east sector, I smelled a strong cigar smell. It wasn't a common smell, it was expensive tobacco, the kind only very rich men smoked. The aroma hung in the still air, dense, impossible to ignore. I looked around, but there was no one, no visitor, no employee, just me and that smell that shouldn't be there. I started noticing subtle changes in objects. A chair that was facing the wall appeared facing the door. Dusty books on library shelves changed position. I took photos with my cell phone at the beginning of the round and compared them at the end. It wasn't imagination. Things were moving. The cold also got worse. Even on the hottest nights, certain areas of the property were freezing. The temperature dropped suddenly, and my breath became visible, forming clouds of vapor. This happened mainly near Escobar's old living room, where he used to receive his associates. It was Donna Mercedes who finally told me the legend. I looked for her after a particularly disturbing night, when I found all the doors in a corridor open, even though I had locked them myself an hour before. She looked at me with that seriousness I should have taken seriously from the beginning. "You know what they say about Pablo Escobar, don't you?" she asked, her voice low, almost a whisper. "They say that when he died, his soul tried to rise to heaven, but was rejected for all the lives he took, for all the blood he spilled. So it descended, tried to enter hell, but not even the devil wanted him. Souls so corrupted by evil, so stained by wickedness, find no place anywhere." She paused, her eyes fixed on mine. "So he came back. He came back to the only place that was truly his. And they say he still walks around here, trapped between worlds, without peace, without rest. Just anger, just the presence of what he was." I wanted to laugh, say it was just superstition, but I couldn't. Because everything I had experienced in the last few weeks suddenly made terrible sense. The footsteps, the cigar smell, the cold, the doors that opened by themselves. They weren't coincidences, it was something conscious, something that knew I was there. That night, I returned to my round with a weight in my chest. The hacienda seemed different now that I knew what to look for. Every shadow was denser, every sound more threatening. And for the first time since I started working there, I felt I was being watched. Not by cameras, not by animals, by something that shouldn't be there but was, by something that had never left. The night that changed everything happened 3 months after that conversation with Donna Mercedes. It was a Tuesday, and a storm was approaching. I could see the lightning in the distance, illuminating the mountains in white and violent flashes. The air was charged, electric, and the animals were restless. The hippos grunted non-stop in the lakes. During the 2 o'clock round, I noticed something that made me stop in the middle of the path. There was light in the window of Escobar's old living room. It wasn't electric light, it was different. A faint, yellowish luminosity, like candles or oil lamps. But that room had no electricity, and I hadn't seen anyone enter. My heart raced. I grabbed the radio to call for backup, but it was mute, just static. My cell phone had no signal. I was completely alone. I thought about ignoring it, going back to the guardhouse and waiting for dawn. But something pulled me there. I needed to know. I walked to the main house, each step seeming heavier than the last. The front door was wide open, swaying slightly with the wind that preceded the storm. I entered, and the cigar smell hit me like a wall. It was so strong it almost made me cough. And there was another smell too. Something metallic, like old blood. The light came from the corridor leading to the living room. I advanced slowly, my flashlight trembling in my hand. The cold was unbearable now, my breath coming out in dense clouds. I could hear my own heart beating in my ears, a frantic drum of pure terror. When I reached the door to the room, what I saw made me stop completely. There was a figure sitting in the leather armchair with its back to me. A man, judging by the broad shoulders and posture. He was motionless, but I could see the cigar smoke rising, forming lazy spirals in the cold air. My voice came out trembling, almost inaudible. "Who's there?" Silence. The figure didn't move. I took another step, and the floor creaked under my feet. That's when he turned his head. Not his body, just his head, at an angle no human being could naturally achieve. I didn't see the face completely. The light was too dim, and shadows covered his features, but I saw the eyes. 2 dark, empty points that stared at me with an intensity that paralyzed every muscle in my body. There was no life in those eyes, but there was something worse. There was consciousness, there was recognition, and there was anger. The temperature dropped even more. My flashlight started flickering, the light failing. The walls around seemed to pulse, as if the house itself was breathing. I heard a sound, low and guttural, coming from the figure. They weren't words, but I understood the message. I wasn't welcome there. That place belonged to him. Then he stood up. The movement was slow, deliberate, and when he stood, I realized he was tall, imposing. The silhouette turned completely toward me, and for the first time I could see more details. Dark clothes, a shirt that was once white but was now stained, and that characteristic mustache, unmistakable, that I had seen in 1,000 photos and documentaries. Pablo Escobar was standing in front of me, or what was left of him, what had never left. My flashlight went out completely. Darkness swallowed me, and in the absolute silence I heard footsteps approaching. Heavy, slow, methodical. He was coming in my direction. My body finally reacted, and I ran. I ran like I had never run in my life, stumbling over furniture, hitting door frames without looking back. I heard laughter behind me, deep, hoarse, full of a wickedness that seemed ancient, eternal. The footsteps followed me, always at the same distance, as if he was playing with me, savoring my terror. I reached the front door and shot outside, the rain already falling hard, soaking me in seconds. I didn't stop running until I reached the guardhouse. I locked myself in there, panting, trembling uncontrollably. I looked at the security monitors and my blood froze. The camera showing the entrance to the main house captured something. A figure standing in the doorway, looking directly at the camera, looking directly at me. And then, slowly, he raised his hand and waved, a casual gesture, almost friendly. but loaded with a silent threat that I felt to my bones. The image flickered and went to static. When it returned, the figure had disappeared. I spent the rest of that night locked in the guardhouse, every muscle tense, eyes fixed on the monitors. The storm punished the hacienda with a fury that seemed supernatural. Lightning illuminated the property in blinding flashes, and with each flash, I feared seeing that figure again, closer, always closer. When the sun finally rose, Rodrigo arrived for the morning shift. He found me pale, soaked, trembling. I didn't need to say anything. He just looked at me and nodded, as if he knew exactly what had happened. "You saw him, didn't you?" he asked with a tired, resigned voice. I told him everything, every detail of that night, expecting him to call me crazy, to laugh in my face. But he didn't do any of that. Instead, he took me to his office and opened a locked drawer. From inside, he took out an old notebook with yellowed and stained pages. "All the night watchmen who worked here kept records," he explained, flipping through the pages. "Everyone saw something. Everyone felt his presence." He showed me reports from other employees, stories almost identical to mine. Footsteps, doors that opened, the cigar smell, the inexplicable cold. And some, like me, had seen the figure. "Why didn't anyone warn me?" I asked, my voice loaded with anger and fear. Rodrigo sighed, closing the notebook. "Because no one believes until they see it with their own eyes. And because we need someone here at night. The park can't be left unprotected." He then told me what the oldest ones knew, what was passed in whispers among those who had worked there for decades. When Pablo Escobar was killed in Medellin, his body was buried, but something of him returned to the hacienda. Not immediately, but gradually, as if his essence was being pulled back to the only place where he truly had absolute power. "The legend that Donna Mercedes told is real," Rodrigo said, his voice low. "He found no peace. He can't leave this world, but he also can't move forward. He's trapped here, tied to this place by everything he did, by all the lives he destroyed. And he knows it. That's why the anger, that's why he haunts whoever dares to enter his domains at night." Rodrigo showed me something else in the notebook. Drawings made by previous watchmen all showed the same figure, the same man with a mustache, always in the shadows, always watching. One of the watchmen had written a phrase that gave me chills. "He doesn't want us to forget. He doesn't want to be forgotten." I understood then. Pablo Escobar in life was obsessed with power, with control, with being remembered. And in death, that obsession remained. He haunted the hacienda not just because he was trapped there, but because he needed them to know he still existed, that he still had dominion over that place. "You can leave if you want," Rodrigo said. "No one will judge you. Most don't last even a month after seeing him." I thought about my daughter, about the money I needed. I thought about leaving that place and never coming back. But something in me, maybe pride, maybe stubbornness, made me stay. I returned that night, and on the following nights, I learned to avoid certain areas, not to look too long at the shadows, to ignore sounds that didn't make sense. But he was always there. I felt it. In the dark corners, in the empty rooms, in the silent corridors, a constant presence watching, waiting. Sometimes I found signs. A still smoking cigar in a dusty ashtray, wet footprints on the marble floor, even without rain. And once I found a message scribbled in the dust on a table. "This place is mine." I worked there for another 2.5 years after that night. I never saw him directly again, but I knew he was there. He always was. He always will be. Because souls like Pablo Escobar's, souls stained by so much evil, find no rest. They remain trapped in the places where they exercise their power, condemned to wander eternally. And Hacienda Nápoles, no matter how much it's a park during the day, at night belongs to him. It always belonged. It always will. My last night at Hacienda Nápoles was different from all the others. Not because something extraordinary happened, but precisely the opposite. It was a silent night. almost peaceful, as if he knew I was leaving and had decided to let me go. I did my last round with mixed feelings. Relief at leaving that place, but also a strange melancholy. For 3 years, that cursed property had been my routine, my livelihood. I had learned to live with fear, to accept that I shared that space with something that shouldn't exist. I passed by the main house one last time. The door was closed, as it should be. There was no light in the windows, no cigar smell in the air, just the silence of the night and the distant song of crickets. For a moment, I almost doubted everything I had lived through. Almost. But then I felt it. That familiar presence, that weight in the air I had learned to recognize. He was there, watching from somewhere in the shadows, not threatening this time, just present, like a proprietor watching someone leave his property for the last time. I returned to the guardhouse and collected my things. My daughter was better now. The treatments had worked. I had gotten the money I needed, but the price was high. Not in money, but in sleepless nights, in constantly looking over my shoulder, in knowing that there are things in this world that defy all logic and reason. Rodrigo arrived early that morning to say goodbye. He shook my hand firmly and handed me the notebook. "You deserve to keep this," he said. "Few lasted as long as you. Few had the courage to return after seeing him." I accepted the notebook, feeling the weight of those pages full of reports of terror and survival. Before leaving, I looked one last time at the property. The sun was rising, bathing the hacienda in a golden and deceptively peaceful light. Tourists would start arriving in a few hours, taking photos, laughing, with no idea of what inhabited that place when darkness fell. I got in my car and drove away. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. I didn't want to see if there was any figure watching my departure from some distant window. Some fears are better left behind, even knowing they never really leave us. Today I work somewhere else, a common job, with normal hours and nothing supernatural, but I keep the notebook at home, locked in a drawer. Sometimes I open it and read the reports, remembering that I wasn't the only one, that I'm not crazy. Other people saw, other people know. And when I hear news about Hacienda Nápoles, about the theme park that attracts thousands of visitors every year, I can't help but think about the night watchmen who work there now. I wonder if they've already heard the footsteps, if they've already felt the inexplicable cold, if they've already found doors open that should be locked. I wonder if they already know the truth, that Pablo Escobar never really left his hacienda, that he's still there, trapped between worlds, condemned to wander eternally through the empire he built with blood and terror, a soul so corrupted that neither heaven nor hell wanted it. And that at night, when the tourists leave and the lights go out, Hacienda Nápoles returns to being what it always was, the kingdom of a ghost, the domain of a dead man who refuses to accept his end. That was my story, my real experience at Hacienda Nápoles, the place that once belonged to the most dangerous man in Colombia. I know many of you may think it's just a made-up story, an urban legend to scare tourists. I would think the same if I hadn't lived every second of it. But the truth is that there are places in this world that carry the weight of what happened in them, places where so much blood was spilled, where so much evil was practiced, that something becomes impregnated in the walls, in the air, in the very earth. And Hacienda Nápoles is one of those places. Pablo Escobar was responsible for the death of thousands of people, politicians, police officers, innocent civilians. He spread terror throughout an entire country, built an empire of pain and destruction, and maybe, just maybe, souls that cause so much suffering really don't find peace. Maybe they remain trapped, condemned to eternally relive the places where they exercise their power. If you ever visit Hacienda Nápoles, enjoy the day. Take your photos, learn the history, see the hippos. But when the sun starts to set and the employees start closing the gates, leave. Don't stay to see what happens when night falls over that place, because some secrets are better left in the darkness, and some presences are better not confronted. Thank you for listening to my story. If you made it this far, leave a like if you felt that chill down your spine, if you looked over your shoulder while listening. Leave in the comments. Do you believe in trapped souls? Would you have the courage to work in a place like Hacienda Nápoles at night? And if you want to hear more real horror stories, stories that will make you question what exists beyond what we can see, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because the world is full of haunted places, inexplicable experiences, encounters with the supernatural, and I'm here to tell each one of them. Until next time, if you have the courage to come back.